All right, welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're going deep, really deep, into something I think pretty much everyone listening can relate to.
Yeah, it's kind of universal, right?
Totally. We're talking about greed, money, and like what all that says about who we are deep down, like what makes us tick.
For sure. And we've got a ton of fascinating material
I
to
know.
work with here. I mean, you guys sent in some really incredible stuff. Ancient wisdom, modern psychology, it's all here.
It is. We've got the Bible, we've got the Bhagavad Gita, we've got the Tao Te Ching.
Yeah.
Like, we're going way back for some timeless perspectives on this whole thing.
And then to complement that, we'll be looking at the psychology behind why we're so drawn to money. Why does it have this hold on us? And of course, we have to address that famous or maybe infamous quote about money being the root of all evil.
Right. Got to tackle that one head on. I think a lot of people misunderstand what that actually means.
Totally. So our mission today is to, I guess, trying to make sense of all this. Like, what do these sources tell us about greed? Is it just like an unavoidable side effect of money? Or is money just bringing out something that's already there inside us? And then can this desire for more, this drive, can it ever actually be a good thing?
So many questions. And honestly, the answers might surprise you.
I think so. What's interesting to me right off the bat is how many of these ancient traditions, different as they are, they kind of land on the same basic idea about greed.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like across the board, they tend to view greed negatively. Like it's this sorts of suffering, blocking inner peace and spiritual growth. And they all say it. Christians, Hindus, Taoists.
Wow. Okay, so let's unpack that a bit. Let's start with the Bible. It seems pretty clear about its stance on greed.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
There are a few key passages that really stand out, like 1 Timothy 6:9. For the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. Now, it's so important to emphasize here, it's the love of money, the excessive devotion to it, that's the problem, not money itself.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So it's not saying money is bad. It's saying the obsession with it is bad.
Exactly. And, if you look at the original Greek, the word used there, philaguria, it really emphasizes this excessive craving, this avarice.
Huh. Okay, interesting. So it's about that unhealthy attachment to money. Got it. What other verses come to mind?
Well, there's Luke 12:15, where Jesus says, watch out, be on your guard against all kinds of greed. Life does not consist in an abundance of possessions. I mean, that's a pretty powerful statement about what truly matters, right?
No kidding. Like, it's about so much more than just piling up stuff.
Right. And then you've got Proverbs 28:25. It says, a greedy person stirs up conflict, but the one who trusts in the Lord will be enriched. So there's this contrast between the inner turmoil of greed and the genuine fulfillment that comes from faith.
Right. It's like greed makes you fight for scraps while faith actually enriches you.
Exactly. And then, of course, there's that super vivid image in Matthew 19:24, the camel trying to pass through the eye of a needle. I mean, come on, that's just such a striking picture.
Yeah, what's that one about?
Well, it's basically saying that being overly attached to wealth, it can create this massive, almost impossible barrier to spiritual progress. It makes you really think about what you're holding on to and why.
For sure. Okay, so that's a pretty clear picture from the Bible. What about the Bhagavad Gita? What does Hindu philosophy have to say about greed?
Well, in the Bhagavad Gita, greed, or lobha, it's seen as stemming from attachment and like a lack of understanding, ignorance. And it's not just like a bad habit. It's a serious obstacle to spiritual liberation, like a path to self-destruction.
That's pretty intense.
Oh, it is. Bhagavad Gita 16.21 straight up calls greed one of the three gates to self-destructive hell, right alongside lust and anger. Like, abandon these three, it says.
Oh, okay. No mincing words there.
Nope. And then in 3.37, greed is described as this insatiable, all-devouring enemy. It really emphasizes how this craving just never ends and how it can drive you to do all sorts of bad things.
So it's like this monster that just keeps growing the more you feed it.
Exactly. But like many traditions, the Gita offers an antidote: detachment. Verse 2.71 says, a person who has given up all desires, who moves about free from attachments and egoism, attains peace.
So again, it's about letting go, like breaking free from that constant craving for more.
Right. Now, switching gears a bit, let's look at Taoism. It's all about balance and simplicity. So how does it view greed?
Yeah, I'm curious.
Well, in Taoism, greed is seen as disrupting that natural harmony they emphasize. Like it's excess. And excess always leads to imbalance and suffering. The Tao Te Ching uses some really cool metaphors to illustrate this.
I remember something about an overflowing bowl, right?
Exactly. Chapter 9 says, fill your bowl to the brim and it will spill. Keep sharpening your knife and it will blunt. It's saying that taking things too far, pushing for more and more, it always backfires.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Too much of anything is bad.
Right. And then in chapter 53, it links the greed of rulers to societal breakdown. It says, when the court is corrupt, the fields are abandoned, and the storehouses are empty.
So it's not just about personal suffering, but it can affect entire societies.
Exactly. And there's also this idea about clinging leading to loss. Chapter 44 warns, he who is attached to things will suffer much. He who saves too much will suffer heavy loss.
It's kind of a paradox, right? The more you try to hold on to, the more you end up losing.
Yeah, exactly. It speaks to how fleeting material things are and how clinging to them just causes pain. And ultimately, Taoism says true wealth is contentment. Chapter 33 states, he who knows he has enough is rich.
That's such a powerful redefinition of wealth. It's not about what you have, but about being satisfied with what you have.
Exactly. And it's amazing, isn't it, how these different spiritual traditions, separated by so much time and culture, they all arrive at this same core idea. Greed equals suffering. Contentment and detachment equal peace. It really makes you think about our modern world, you know?
For real, it's like we're constantly bombarded with messages telling us we need more, more, more.
Absolutely. And it makes me wonder, why are we so obsessed with money in the first place? Like, what's the psychology behind this drive?
Yeah, that's a great question. Obviously, money helps us survive. Like, we need it for food, shelter, the basics.
Absolutely. On a fundamental level, it provides security.
Yeah.
And in today's world, money is essential for survival. So a desire for it, it can totally stem from a fear of hardship, vulnerability. It makes sense.
Makes perfect sense. It's about feeling safe and secure. But we both know it often goes way beyond that, right? It's not just about surviving.
No, definitely not. Money can also give you power and control, like the ability to make choices, influence things, and not be so dependent on others. Unfortunately, this can become a desire to control others, to feel superior.
And let's be honest, in our society, wealth equals status. It's a huge part of how we judge success.
Oh, absolutely. The desire for money can be all about social standing, recognition, wanting to be admired, to belong to a certain group. It's tied to how people see you, how they value you.
And there's also that more basic, like, instant gratification. Buying stuff feels good.
Oh yeah, the allure of luxury, comfort, experiences. It's powerful. And actually, buying something new releases dopamine in your brain. It's literally rewarding, which can obviously become addictive.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. It's like a little high you chase. And then once you have some wealth, there's that fear of losing it, right? Which pushes you to get even more.
Exactly, it's a cycle. The more you have, the more you're afraid of losing it. So you keep accumulating more to protect yourself against that fear. And then some people fall for this idea that more money equals ultimate freedom, ultimate happiness, which we know isn't really true.
Right. So does money actually buy happiness?
Well, research suggests money can definitely reduce financial stress, and that contributes to well-being. But after a certain point, like once your basic needs are met, more money doesn't equal more happiness.
So that whole more money, more happiness thing is a myth.
Pretty much. Real lasting happiness seems to come from those less tangible things: strong relationships, purpose, personal growth, contributing to something bigger than yourself.
Okay, so all this brings us back to that famous quote, money is the root of all evil. But as we've talked about, that's not quite accurate.
Not exactly. The actual verse in 1 Timothy 6:10 is, the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. And that tiny difference is actually super important.
Right, it's not money itself, it's that obsession with it.
Exactly. Money is just a tool. It's neutral. It's how we use it, how we relate to it, that determines whether it's good or bad.
Like that fire analogy you used earlier, right? Fire can cook your food or burn down your house.
Precisely. Fire can be helpful or destructive. Same with money. It can fund good things or fuel corruption. It all depends on the person using it, their intentions.
And it seems like greed often comes from those deeper issues, like fear, scarcity, attachment, not money itself.
Right. It's about your mindset, how you view the world. Some people hoard because they're terrified of not having enough. Others give generously because they want to make a difference. Money just magnifies those tendencies.
Okay, so here's a potentially controversial question. Can greed, or at least a strong sense of self-interest, actually be a good thing?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Seems counterintuitive, right, after all the bad stuff we've talked
I
about.
don't know, right?
But think about it. Look at innovation, economic growth. The desire for wealth, for power has driven a lot of amazing inventions, businesses, technologies.
How is that greed? Isn't that just ambition?
Well, there's a fine line, right? But think of someone like Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, Jeff Bezos. They were driven by financial success, sure, but they also created things that changed the world.
Okay, yeah, like their drive to achieve, even if partly for money, it benefited everyone.
Exactly. And then you have competition in the market. Capitalism, for all its flaws, relies on self-interest. Companies compete to offer better products, cheaper prices. That benefits consumers.
And on an individual level, wanting wealth, recognition, it can push people to work harder, be better, like artists, athletes, scientists.
Absolutely. That drive, even if partly self-serving, can lead to amazing accomplishments. And don't forget philanthropy. A lot of wealthy people, successful companies, they create jobs, fund charities.
It's like Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, right. They've given away billions.
Exactly. So that same ambition that drives wealth can also lead to positive social impact.
Okay, so it's complicated. There's a difference between healthy ambition and destructive greed.
Absolutely. The key is ethics. Ambition can be about growth, achievement, while respecting others. Greed is about pursuing wealth at any cost, even if it harms others.
So back to the Bible, that phrase, the love of money, seems really important to understanding all this.
It is. The Reddit discussion we got really emphasizes the original Greek word philarguria. It means love of money, but it's more like avarice, this insatiable desire for more.
Right, it's that excessive craving that's the problem.
Exactly, and the God Questions article points out that money itself is neutral. It's when we let it control us, when it becomes our top priority, that's when things go wrong.
It becomes like an idol, right? Something we worship instead of our values.
Exactly. And they link the love of money to all sorts of bad behavior. Dishonesty, theft, harming others. It's all about what we value most.
And there's that powerful line from Jesus, you cannot serve both God and money.
Right. You have to choose. And that God Questions article sees the love of money as idolatry. Anything we prioritize above our spiritual values becomes a controlling force.
So like the rich young ruler who couldn't follow Jesus because he was too attached to his wealth.
Exactly. It shows how wealth can be a huge obstacle to spiritual growth. And the writings of John Chrysostom, John Calvin, John Wesley, they all warn about the dangers of wanting to be rich, of putting money above God.
They all saw how that desire for money can corrupt you.
Exactly. And that article from Tidely, it had this great line, money is a good means, but a bad God.
That's so good. It sums it up perfectly.
Right. And they talk about giving, especially to the church, as a way to keep your relationship with money in check.
To prevent it from controlling you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think looking at all our sources, we see this consistent message. Greed, especially the love of money, it's destructive. It causes suffering, harms society, blocks spiritual growth.
Right. But we've also seen how self-interest, when channeled correctly, can drive progress, innovation. It's all about how we use it.
Exactly. Money itself is just a tool. It's our intentions, our values that determine its impact. And those spiritual texts we looked at, they emphasize finding contentment, balance.
Not chasing after more and more stuff.
Exactly. So I think we're left with this really important question. What does a healthy relationship with money and ambition look like? How do we achieve success without falling into greed?
Right. How do we stay grounded, ethical, and fulfilled? It's something we all need to think about. Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.